This is my 2025 Make 9 bingo. This is my 2025 Make 9 bingo. I don't know why I did that. Hi everyone, my name is Claudia and welcome back to Project Notes. This is a podcast where I share the things I'm making in the knitting world. If you're a returning viewer, thank you so much for coming back. We haven't seen each other since October of 2024. I had a wonderful holiday season with my family and with my friends. I was able to travel a bit, see places that were familiar and new to me, but it's great to be back here in 2025 with you all. And if you are a new viewer, thank you so much for clicking on this video. The comment section down below is a great resource to learn about what knitters in the community are making, what yarns they're loving, what projects they're working on, what they're loving, and what's absolutely driving them crazy. So make sure you share below. What are you making? We want to know. Also, don't forget to subscribe and to share this video with someone you think might be interested in this podcast. We are the little train that could, the little engine that could. That's how I describe this podcast. And the more people who know about it and who can share what they're making, the better. It's a really great space to be in. Before we get started, I have a few house notes. I wanted to take a moment to acknowledge and to give my prayers and best wishes to those who were affected by the Southern California wildfires. I live in Southern Nevada, and Southern Californians, especially those from LA, are frequent visitors to the area. I'm a frequent visitor of LA. The past month, seeing the devastation, what people lost, people having to start over was heartbreaking. So I'm going to share links below if you are interested in donating to the cause or seeing how you can help. See the links below. You'll notice that I'm in a different location. Today, it's a pretty overcast, cloudy day. This room was the best that I could get sunlight in, so it's just not all artificial light surrounding me. The downside of that is it's going to be a bit echoey. I have a new filming setup. I bought a mic that unfortunately does not pair with the new device that I'm using to film. So I do apologize for any echoiness or background noise that you may hear. I'll try my best to clean it up in editing and post, and I'll try again next month to see if I can finally figure out my audio. So what am I wearing? This is the Trinigan cardigan designed by Andrea Mowry. I will put in some cut-ins so that you can see it. I'm in love with this sweater, and I'm also not in love with this sweater. I made some design decisions that were probably not the best. I've learned my lesson now, but this is all knit in Malabrigo Rios. I think the green is Solis, and I forget what the cream white color is. I'll put it on the screen, and I'll put some other project notes about it too, but I took about maybe 4, maybe 5 months to complete this. It was a slow steady knit, my type of thing. I love slow steady knits, but what I did do that I don't love that I did, I need to go back and redo it, is I put pockets in this. And I didn't do the pockets correctly. I should have added more structure to it. So now they just kind of like gape open and hang open. What I may do is I may change the pocket color, or I might just investigate other types of pockets that I can use and replace in this pattern. But it's just so easy to throw on and wear that I haven't really put that much thought into it. It's just one of those things where you make something, you try it out, it may not work out, but you still like it. So we'll see. Maybe this year I'll tackle the pockets, or sometime soon. Today I wanted to share about my 2025 Make 9. Now, if you're not familiar with it, Make 9 is when crafters take 9 squares in their Instagram and share what it is that they are going to be making during a particular year. Now, I'm not really a New Year's resolution type of person. I believe that for me, New Year's resolutions are meant to be broken. What I do like about Make 9 is that it does focus my attention on the things that I really want to spend my time creating. I really like the list I came up with this year because there are things I've been thinking about for several years. To make it even more fun for me, I am going to make it into a bingo style. So I'm gonna go for the full blackout of card. And the prize is gonna be individual for me. I like to really treat myself if I accomplish a goal. And if I can accomplish everything on my Make 9, I'll treat myself to something nice. Maybe a new pair of knitting needles, maybe a knitting experience, maybe taking myself to a yarn festival. This is my 2025 Make 9 bingo. This is my 2025 Make 9 bingo. I don't know why I did that. The first square in my 2025 Make 9 bingo is going to be knitting a Stephen West pattern. I love Stephen West. I love everything he makes. I am a super fan, but I've never actually completed anything he's designed. I've participated in mystery knit-alongs, and what I learned is I don't really like mystery knit-alongs. I don't like mysteries in general. I don't like surprises. I like to know where I'm going and what the finished object is going to look like. I've tried Stephen West mystery knit-alongs in the past, and I just lose steam because I don't know where it's going. And they always end up at a beautiful point, but I've got to know. I need to know what this thing is about. So I decided to stop joining the mystery knit-alongs and to just knit one of his patterns. The great thing is I have plenty of sock yarn in complementary, contrasting colors that I think fit the direction he goes in a lot of his patterns, which is color play. And I'm really excited to do that. One of the patterns in his portfolio that I've been interested in for a long time is the Brioshoreline shawl. And I love that it's brioche. It really does wind in and curve in a beautiful way. And the colors he chose for it are very soft, but they're bold too in a way that makes a statement. It's a design that can kind of fade into the back for you, but also pop out. That's one design of his that I love. However, I think it was in 2023, the Stephen M. Penelope web store, which is his shop based in Amsterdam, had a huge sale, and it included books. I didn't buy yarn, I just bought books. And one of the books I bought is Painting Shawls, 13 knitting patterns to paint with yarn by Stephen West. And I'm not going to show you any of the pattern instructions, but I just wanted to show you some of the designs in here. This is incredible. And I'm thinking of doing one of the honeycomb shawls. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm going to be using this book to source the pattern that I eventually choose. And I have tons of yarn. I have tons of sock yarn. Most of this, if not all of it, is knit in a sock weight yarn. And if not, the great thing about his patterns is you can play with weight, you can play with color, you can play with fiber, you can play with texture. But in his designs, there is a big focus on movement. And that's what I want to capture when I make one of my Stephen West designs this year. So my first Make 9 is a Stephen West shawl. The next technique I want to try in 2025 is Intarsia. Now, I understand Intarsia isn't something that's difficult for too many people, but it's a challenge for me because of the way that I knit. I tend to knit when I'm on a road trip, when I'm waiting at the doctor's office, when I'm waiting for an appointment, or at night just kind of cuddled up into the couch by the fire. Intarsia, though, when I've tried it, requires more focus. And I'll read this from the Vogue Book of Knitting. I should also mention that all of the books that you see here, I'm going to put links for down below. They are not affiliate links. I don't earn any commission off of them, but they are books I use and do recommend. I also recommend too checking out your local public library before purchasing one of these books, because some of these books can be a little bit expensive, or if you buy a lot of them, it adds up really quickly. So I recommend people to try their best to use the resources around them that might be free. But I'll read this from the Vogue Knitting, the Ultimate Knitting book, and I showed this in my last podcast too. So according to this book, Intarsia is a colorwork technique in which blocks of color are worked with separate balls of yarn or bobbins. The yarns are not carried across the back of the work between color changes and must be twisted around each other at each change to prevent holes in the work. I'll see if I can show you an example of Intarsia and why I love it and why it's so beautiful. Maxim Sear has a beautiful sweater pattern that I'll put on the screen. I think it's called Magnolia, but if it's called something else, you'll see it here. The other Intarsia project that I have been loving since I saw it is Sylvia Watts-Cherry's Snug Wrap. And I love this shawl pattern. I love the geometric shape to it, the colors she chose. There's a lot of things you can do with this, but what's keeping me from making it is my utter failure at doing Intarsia in the past. What intimidates me about this is just Intarsia. Just multiple strands of yarn going in bobbins, sometimes bags. I've tried, y'all. I've tried. It's just something that I have not been able to master. It doesn't matter how small, it doesn't matter how big the project is. It's just something that I haven't been able to manage. And I think I need to change my frame of mind about Intarsia, because I don't want to not knit something just because it's hard or because I've had challenges with it. I just want to try and get better at it. So this is the second box on my Make 9. Now, a bonus box that I'm putting on my Make 9 this year is knitting a pattern designed by Sylvia Watts-Cherry. Her, what is it called? Her Nubian Queen pullover, to me, is a masterpiece. It's an absolute masterpiece. It's so beautiful. I don't know if that's the Intarsia project I want to start with, though. I'm of two minds about it. If you choose something that you love, you will make it. But I really need to get some easier experience with Intarsia. I just love her patterns. I think she's an incredible designer. Her approach to color work is so fun and so fresh, and she's got stranded color work, Intarsia, stripes, long floats, and it's just fun. Like, she's got a pattern with roller skates on it, and she's got a pattern with like a cow or a buffalo. They're just fun patterns, and I really want to give one of these a try this year. Did I mention that I'm allowed to do double dipping in my Make 9 knitting bingo? So one of the goals I have on my list is to combine knitting and sewing this year. I can sew basic garments, I can sew quilts. I really started to get back into that last year when I had a couple colleagues show me how to do that. I really want to combine the two, and I want to either make a pillow, use the knitted side as the front, sew up the back, or even maybe make a bag. There are a ton of patterns out there. I'm going to double dip. I might triple dip. I might use that Sylvia Watts-Cherry shawl pattern or part of it to knock out 3 things from my list. Knitting one of her patterns, trying Intarsia, and combining knitting and sewing. So we shall see how this turns out. The next box of my Make 9 bingo for the year is to knit a vintage or vintage inspired pattern. Let me speak more about that. Vintage. What is vintage? Well, according to some of my Google searches, patterns knit in the 90s or made in the 90s are considered vintage. Ugh, that just like, oh, I'm vintage. I'm a vintage person, but patterns knit and designed in the 90s or the past are all under the umbrella of vintage object.
Hi everyone, this is Editing Claudia. I wanted to jump in here just to clarify a few things about the patterns I'm about to show. The first pattern I'm going to show was published in 1991. The second was published in the 2000s and was inspired by vintage silhouettes from the 1940s. In the knitting community, vintage is usually seen as patterns knit and designed in the 1930s all the way up through the 60s and 70s. I'm applying the general vintage label of anything that was created or made in the past 30 years when I speak specifically about the first pattern. There is debate about what is vintage. Antique is a little bit more known and understood. So to listen to someone who's way more qualified than I am to give you more information about this, I'm going to be linking a video from Engineering Knits. I think she does a beautiful job summarizing it, and she also has a wonderful channel. Subscribe if you can.
I've really wanted to take a look at vintage patterns. Some of them need to be, I think the word used online is translated or written in a way that modern knitters can understand. I am currently working on a test knit that I am enjoying so much. I think it's a fabulous knit, but it follows that sort of tradition where everything isn't always spelled out. You have to have some background knowledge to complete the project, or you have to be willing to really look into some resource books to understand. And that's just a way of pattern writing. It doesn't bother me because I've been knitting for so long, but it's a great way to really condense down a pattern and to give the knitter some freedom to choose what they want to do. I can't say I prefer one or the other, but that happens a lot in vintage knitting patterns. Other things with vintage knitting patterns, they use yarn that may or may not still be around. They also have a very limited size range. So most of the vintage patterns that I've looked at, they only go up to a 38-inch size bust. Now, that is not me. Right now I'm at about a 42-inch size bust. So anything that I knit, I'm going to have to do the pattern math to fit me. And it's not just the bust size, but you want to think, if there are short rows in this pattern, where would the short rows go? How long do you want to make the pattern? And to really think about the proportions as you size it up. Basically, a lot of pattern math. And I'm not afraid of that. I'm not scared of that. It'll be a good exercise for me to give it a try. Last year, I kind of fell down the Kim Hargreaves rabbit hole, and I wanted to pick up some of her pattern books, but one of them I found is this one. And I think this is published in 1991. There's a chance that some of you watching were not born in 1991. I remember 1991. It was a pretty good year. But this is the Kim Hargreaves collection Rowan Original. And it even has an introduction by Cave Fassett. And let me flip to the page of the top I'm thinking about making. There are a couple. And the thing about Kim Hargreaves is she has a lot of really beautiful timeless silhouettes. Maybe trends in color have changed, silhouettes have changed, but you're getting a really great pattern that you can modify. You can add the color work, you can keep the color work, you can make it bigger, you can make it smaller. It just depends on what you want to do. And so I consider a lot of these patterns to just be really great starting points. But once again, these don't go up to, the one I want to make does not go up to my bust size. So I'm gonna have to size it up quite a bit. Some do, some don't. That's just the way these patterns were back then. I'm gonna stop flipping and actually show you what I want to make, if I can find it. So. Are you still there? I had to readjust you. You fell off the stand. Once again, this is what happens when you change your knitting setup. I'll get it together, I promise. I promise I will get it together. It's the pattern right over here. So once again, we were talking about my general fear of Intarsia, but I love the scallop neckline. I love the way it fits. I love how it's cropped. I would probably make it just a little bit longer. There even appears to be like some sort of like tasseling or crochet bits at the bottom. I just love it. It's called the Silk Star, and the stars are actually, they are Intarsia. So with this project, I think I'm gonna leave the Intarsia out and the stars out because I'm just not so much a fan of those, but I like just the top. The bust size for this only goes up to fit a 38. So the way it's described is it's a 38-inch bust that would go up to a size 40. So once again, that is too small for me. So I'm gonna have to just do some pattern math. Also, I'm not going to need as much yarn for this as well because I'm not gonna be doing the color work star. So I'll see how that actually impacts the gauge as well. It is because when you take the gauge for something like this, the tension is given for the pattern over, it's given over the pattern on a 4x4 inch or a 4x4 inch or a 10 by 10 centimeter square. Finding a gauge that works for me and really using this more as a guide or a recipe rather than using this as instructions that I need to 100% stick to. The needle size is a US 3, so it's gonna be a small needle size. I'm not afraid of those. I like knitting with small needle sizes. I'm looking at more of the pictures in the book, and it does look like the bottom is crocheted. I don't know if I would keep that or add some tassels or do some ribbing or do a different crochet border. This is a very me top, and this one's beautiful too. You could take a pattern like this, maybe deepen the neckline or not, but this is something that I just thrifted on eBay. I did not find this in stores. I did not find this in my local public library. I think I found this on a shop that's just known for selling vintage books, and I'm glad I was able to get it because it's also a great snapshot of what people were knitting, 30 years ago. Now, if I want to make my life easier, I think I would stick with the vintage inspired patterns. This is the Titus Vintage Collection, and all of the designs are designed by Alison Moreton. And I believe she was using Ba Ram Ewe, or sorry, the publisher is Ba Ram Ewe. And the yarn that was used in this book is Titus. I don't know if this yarn is still being made, so I'm gonna have to take a little bit more of a look at the weight of it, how it was made, all of that. This book is from 2016. I picked this up in a yarn shop in Edinburgh, maybe a year and a half ago. My family and I were traveling for a family friend's wedding. It was a beautiful wedding. They even had like a Harry Potter owl, but that's a different topic. But I went into one of the local yarn shops, and if I can remember the name of it, I'll put it on the screen. The shop owner was there. She was so lovely, and it was just walls of yarn, rustic Scottish yarns, and then just tables filled with knitting books. What I like about a book like this is it does the translation for me, it does the pattern math for me, and it already has a lot of the patterns in my size. So I can knit a vintage knitting pattern that's already been looked at, that's already been tested by somebody else, and know that I'm going to get a pretty interesting and good result. The pattern that I am most interested in making, and I'm going to cover part of the text on this, is the Stormy Sunset. Now, what the shop owner told me about this is, one, she had it for a while. I picked this up in 2023, the end of 2023. She's had it in her shop for a while, and she's knit some things from this, and she shared that one of the techniques in this book they use is changing the needle size they use throughout a garment to conserve yarn. And I need to read more about it and do more research about it because I was really interested in how she explained it. She said during World War II, post-World War II era, there were limited resources in the UK. And because of that, people had to stretch their materials further if they wanted to make something. So instead, and somehow this meant that by using different needles to size a garment, it saved yarn, but it also created a really custom tailored silhouette. Now, I am paraphrasing this so badly. When I decide which one I'm gonna do, I'll explain it a little bit better in detail, but I just thought that was really interesting. If you have information on that, can you share it below? Because I thought it was a really interesting way to knit. I've only seen that in maybe one or two modern patterns where throughout the pattern you change the needle size, especially when it comes to color work, to make sure that you're not getting any rippling in your fabric. But I'm gonna take a look at this. I'm gonna knit a vintage or vintage inspired pattern, either from this book or from this book, and I'm excited to give both a try. The next knitting experience I want to try in 2025 is knitting toys. I've collected quite a toy knitting resource library for myself. I've picked some up from my local library as well, but I haven't really made anything. And one of the reasons is I wanted to wait for a time when my little one could make decisions about what it would look like. I'm gonna be making this for him. I want him to be able to choose the toy, the colors, all of that. So it's a custom toy for him. And I found a couple books, but one of the books I'm going to share with you is the Knitted Menagerie, 30 Adorable Creatures to Knit. And I just think this is so adorable. You can see some of the examples here. Little elephant and mommy. A lion. I think these are meerkats, like from the, oh, they're just so cute. And if we go back to like the end credits and all of that, you can see they just look like a cute little family. So we started talking about some of the things that he may want in the colors that he may want. I think he may, okay, so this is why it's important for me to ask him. I was gonna make him the puffin. I love the puffin. It's just so cute, and it's, just look at it. It's a cute little puffin, but he likes something a little bit more ferocious. I'm a puffin girl. He is a lion. He's a lion kind of kid. This lion may be multicolored. It might be the same colors. I'm not 100% sure. I will be making toys and experimenting with that. Next in 2025, my goal is to start destashing some of my yarn. I don't think I'll ever show my yarn stash here on YouTube, not because I think there's a problem with it, but I want to focus more on the projects instead of the products that you need to make the projects, if that makes sense. What I'm saying is I don't think showing my stash would be helpful, and I don't think my stash is something that, you know, a regular knitter should aspire to. I love yarn, I love fiber. I make use of everything I have, but I have too much, and it's okay for me now to let some of it go. I will be selling yarn, giving away yarn, donating yarn, things like that. I'm also, and this is the hard part for me, destashing for me isn't just about the yarn or the equipment, but it's also about the things I've made. I am a prolific sweater and garment knitter. Over the years, between when I started knitting like 10 years ago, maybe 11, and now, some of my styles have changed. Things that I wore back then just don't fit me and my personality now, or my lifestyle now. I want to start destashing those, and I don't know how I will. Maybe I'll give them away to friends. Maybe I'll put them online for sale or for giveaway, or I might donate them to charity. Or what I may do is I might, you know, advertise the yarn and rip the yarn out so somebody can use it as like a second chance yarn. What I'd like to do though is to really go through what I have, see what I'm still using, see what still fits my personal style, and then move forward from there. So I'm going to be destashing my yarn bits, but I'm also going to be destashing some of my garments. I haven't figured out exactly how I'm going to do that, but I think it's time and I'm ready. And that just means I can bring new things that fit me now into my wardrobe. Speaking of destash, one of the things I want to do in 2025 is to be much more organized with my knitting. When I was going through my drawers, I like to sort out my knits to see what needs to be cleaned, what needs to be stored, all of that. I realized that there is a lot of things that I made that I have absolutely no record of. I can remember when I made them. I remember what yarns I used, but some I don't. I do a lot of knitting offline, even though I post a lot and share a lot online. Most of what I make, I've never shared. It's not on Instagram, it's not on YouTube, it's not on Ravelry. And I want to make a better effort to be more organized about what it is that I am making. So making regular updates to my Ravelry pattern pages, and maybe even getting something like a project planner. This is from Mood Fabrics. This is more for sewing, in hopes that it would inspire me to start cataloging some of the stuff that I didn't necessarily want to make a Ravelry page for. So just something like this, a Mood Designer Fabrics notebook with no dates in it, but things like notes. Like I said, this is more sewing based with sewing notes in it, mood boards, patterns, all of that. And I can really go through and just clean up the organization around the things that I make. Finally, I've been playing around with this for a while. I might get to it, I might not. I'm thinking, I've had a design in my mind for a pattern for a couple of years now. I'm not going to give too many details on it, but I would like to try the process of designing my own pattern. I'm not going to give too many details. Like, is it a hat? Is it a scarf? Is it a sweater? I don't know, but it's not something that I think I'm going to commercially release ever. It's just something that I want to do. And as knitters, we make design decisions all of the time. When we decide how long we want something to be, if we like the fiber choice, if we like the fabric, if we want to make a split hem, if we want to seam rather than knit in the round. We have a lot of power over what we knit. And I realize that when I'm knitting patterns, I make a lot of these design choices without thinking about them. And over time, I realized I should take some of these design choices and just experiment and see if I can make a pattern on my own and see what comes out. Hold on, everyone. I'm probably not going to release it to the public. I may not even show it here on YouTube, but I think it would be a good experiment in just trying something new. I have the idea in my head. We'll see if it happens this year. My Make 9 is pretty good to get me through the rest of the year, to keep me focused on things. But it is something that I want to do. I'll give it a try, and maybe I'll show it on YouTube. Maybe I won't. But I'll let you know if I actually do complete that. That's it for my Make 9 2025 bingo. I'm gonna go ahead and get started on some of these. I have a test knit that I am very close to wrapping up, and I want to put a lot of my energies into that. And I will see you all next month for an official project update. I've got some good things to show you. Let us know down below, what are you making for 2025? Do you have any New Year's resolutions that you have attached to your knitting? Or are you just gonna go with the flow and see where you end up? Let me know down below. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.